All right. Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our PrintVis demo. Today's webinar will be interactive, so if you have questions during the demo, feel free to ask Mark, and he will do his best to get all of your questions answered. You can also type your questions into the chat, write them in the Q&A section, or wait until the end of the presentation where we'll conduct a full question and answer period. Before we dive into the demo, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are at Sabre Limited. Here at Sabre Limited, we are certified as a Microsoft Gold partner specializing in Dynamics 365 Business Central. We are one of the leading PrintVis partners and have been performing implementations since 2017. And lastly, we are dedicated solely to manufacturing and supply chain solutions. We are experts in manufacturing and supply chain. We have many glowing reviews from our customers. To see what print manufacturers have to say about working with us, you can read our customer testimonials at sabrelimited.com/customers. Now, if you're not already familiar with PrintVis, you might be wondering what exactly is PrintVis. PrintVis is an all-in-one print MIS solution designed for the printing and graphics industry to streamline and scale print operations. It's an add-on for Microsoft Business Central that creates a full MIS/ERP for any size or type of printer and graphics company. This includes your commercial printers, wide format, packaging, and label manufacturers. It is specifically designed to help you streamline and scale all of your print operations. PrintVis is used by over 1,300 print customers in over 15 countries. It can be installed through the cloud or on premises, and it is Microsoft certified, JDF, and JMF certified. PrintVis is a complete solution where you can do all of your estimating and quoting, case management, planning and scheduling, production management, purchasing and inventory, shop floor management, web integration, invoicing and GL, job costing, and statistics and reporting. So, how is PrintVis different from its competitors? PrintVis is different from your typical MIS because it's built on the back of Microsoft. This means that there are thousands of add-ons that you can install, and it's frequently updated to remain one of the most competitive and comprehensive print information management systems. Now, I'd like to take a minute to introduce you all to Mark Vickers, the Senior PrintVis Analyst at Sabre Limited. Mark has been working in the print industry for over 40 years and has experience across all sorts of different verticals within the print industry. Well, here you go, Mark. You can take it away from here. But before that, would you mind telling our audience a little bit more about your printing background?
Sure. Thanks very much, Caitlin. Welcome, everybody. First of all, thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. As Caitlin said, I have been working in the printing industry for a few years, predominantly in commercial print. Been an estimator for over 20 years, but started in the production side, but also worked in business forms and labels and a few of the other areas. So that's kind of where I come from. Been with PrintVis and Sabre since 2017 as in sales and also training and support. So you're here to see a little bit of PrintVis. So let's jump into our demo today. Now I'm going to do the presentation today using some PowerPoint slides just because it helps to allows me to focus a little bit more specifically in some of the highlight areas that I want to make note of for you. But open to any questions that you have and that stuff. So let's jump in. So here are some of the initial concepts that we want to look at. So we're going to look at what is it's called a role center. So we'll describe what is a role center and show you what it looks like and what it does. You probably wonder, how do you navigate in the system? So we'll touch on that. And also items and cases. We'll explain items are related to your inventory, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll also talk about cases, which is a specific PrintVis term. So first of all, the role center. This is a typical role center. This is the role center for a coordinator. So think of it as like a dashboard. So when the team comes in and they open up and to get into the system, they log in, and this is the role center that they'd be presented with that is sort of like their hub or their work center. From here, they can navigate anywhere into the system, but it's also helping them to be more efficient in their day-to-day function. So from here, there's drop-down menus that you can use for navigation. There's quick points. Case management is my list of cases. Cases are jobs, and we'll touch a bit more on that in a little bit, like I said. We can have an action list here, and you can customize this list to be whatever you, as a user, you want it to be. In this case, we've got it as out of the box, so I can create what's called a request. We can go straight to creating a quote. So these are generating this. These are sales orders. Sales orders are part of Business Central side, which is used for release from the warehouse, so you can inventory your stuff. And then down here we have these tiles. So these green tiles are quick filtered lists. In this case, it's referring to something called cases responsible. And we are going to explain that in a little bit through our demo and uses something called status codes. We'll explain what status codes are and what they do. But this helps the user to track them. Cases responsible are really just indicating these are things that are waiting for them to take action on the job and move it along. So, as an interface, they can click on this and get their list, work on it. It's like the to-do list. This shows them the cases that they're the coordinator responsible for. And of course, there's cases delayed. These are the ones that are falling behind. So it's sort of a bit of a tool to help people stay on track of things. Okay. This is a different role center. This would be a role center for, say, somebody in your accounting department. Again, the cases are here. This is fine, but you see some of the tiles are a bit different as they pertain to activities that commonly would happen in the accounting department. And your menus are a bit different. So you might be, as accounting, you might want to touch into the trial balance. You might want to look at accounts receivable, accounts payable, vendors, things like that. So there's all these activities are kind of designed. And these role centers with the system, you can copy the ones that are provided as standard out of the box, and you can personalize them for your own needs. What makes that nice is that you can design one for your coordinating team so that if you hire a new coordinator, boom, you can just roll that out to them and it's all set and gives them a good starting point. This role center is for the shop floor, and we'll touch on that a little bit today. So the shop floor is where your production operators record time and materials and input the data in through the system. These tiles represent the jobs that they need to perform. And we'll touch on that a little bit farther as we go in, but that's just another role center. This list is I've called up a list of profiles, and that's what we're calling these. These role centers are set up by the profile. What type of function does the operator have within the company? The other nice thing that I like about these is that you can see all the ones that are PVS are provided when Business Central has got that PrintVis extension added. But also the ones that are not with a PVS are the standard ones that come with Business Central. So they all function. They all work in the system, but it's nice to see here because you can see how seamlessly Microsoft and PrintVis are kind of joined together. It's not a, oh, I got to switch over to PrintVis, so I got to, switch over to another screen, or I got to go to another window. They just work seamlessly throughout the system on every page. Navigating. So how do we move around in the system? So as you saw from earlier, we touched on the fact that any of these links will take us to a page or an action to navigate to reports and things like that. But in general, anytime I want, I can go into this magnifying glass, click on that, it brings up this window. And from here, I can start to type on my keyboard. And in this case, if I start to type case management, it identifies the case management as my case list of jobs, and it starts to pull. It's a little bit like searching within Google or the internet, things like that. Okay. So let's take a look at a record or a card within our system. So this is on the customer database. This is the customer card. So this would have your list of all your customers. So it would have in general your customer number for them. Why did this pop up? Hang on 1 second. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So this would have our general tabs. Now, each of these sections has fields divided by the section, and these tabs, you can see this one's closed. We would just click on it, and I'll show you that in a minute. You can open and close them, and it has the name, it has some balance details, and other factors within here, total sales. Over to the right side, I have what's called a fact box. The fact box allows me to get some very pertinent information that relates to this customer, like how many requests do we have for them, how many quote cases are out there, and here's how many order cases we have. Now, you may also notice that there's a combination of green and black. The green indicates that I can drill in for more details. So if I was to click on the 5190, it would open up a page or a pop-up window that would show me, where does this 5190 come from? What are all the orders that are bringing this to the balance that Candoxy owes the company? This is an item. This is an item card. So as I mentioned earlier, the items section is for your inventory. And that would be whether it's raw materials like stocks that you buy, substrates that you buy, inks, bindery materials like stitching wire, or grommets if you do wide format, that kind of stuff. But also it would be finished goods. So finished goods are products that you produce either in part or in full for a customer or for yourself, and you put them on the shelf. And at some point, you either need to do more production with it, or you need to actually just release them. Some companies have stock in their marketplace. They have stock products that they produce, and they just, when a customer wants to order it, they can just pull it off the shelf and ship it. Or it could be inventory that you control for your customer, and you can identify, what location is that at, and whether it's offsite or on-site. And that way, if you've got the inventory and the customer wants a release of 1,000 or 2,000, then you can just generate a simple sales release order and have that shipped out and invoiced. But what I wanted to show here is you can see all these are closed. I get some very highlight information, but if I want more details and I click on this and I open it up, then this brings up my other fields that are in here. And if I open all of these, you're generally going to find that there's somewhat over 100 or so fields, which is a lot. But know that this is what we're here in support and training, as our job will be to work with you, identify what your needs are, and help you define what fields you require, because you won't require all of them. You'll only require a percentage. Some people only require a few, some a few more, but nobody requires all of them. It provides versatility in the system that one customer might use these 50 and another customer might use a different 25. So, but we're here to help sort of navigate that process for you or with you. This is a vendor card. So again, it's very similar. You've been seeing a common pattern just to highlight a little bit of the area. The pencil indicates with the circle indicates this is editable. If there's no circle, it's a read-only. This little icon allows me to export to Excel. Again, one of the nice things with Microsoft is it works very well with all other Microsoft programs, such as Excel, Word, different functions like that. Microsoft CRM, if you're into that sales side with CRMs. It can integrate with other CRM systems. We've done that with customers. It's certainly not a problem. But that's the Excel side. I can add a record. I can delete a record. And again, very common stuff. But on the vendor side, one of the nice little features is we have the option to define for each vendor how we send that purchase requirement to the vendor. Two common ways. One is EDI, the other is email. So it does have the ability to do the electronic document sending. If your vendor supports it, you can, rather than print, attach the PDF of the purchase order to an email to send off and look for them to enter it to their system, it can be fed directly in as an order directly into their system. We'll cover a little bit more on purchasing a bit later. Cases. So what are cases? cases are like the job folder. So, either some that may still be using, like a file folder, an envelope where you physically put all of your documents. This would be electronic version. And it would contain basically the original request by the customer. As you've seen a little bit, and we'll touch on it in the next few slides. It would contain the quote and the order details. You can link it to a Microsoft SharePoint, which allows you to add, just drag and drop some documents, whether it's an Excel file, whether it's a little reference of the artwork. You can do artwork, although what we generally find is most people are connecting with systems like Kodak's or Heidelberg's or Fuji or Esco. They're better suited for controlling because of the servers and all the stuff that goes with it. So you can do a link from the case to where those files reside. So that's a, and any other special information. So it really becomes a single source that holds everything you need from the RFQ through to the invoice. Here's a case card. So again, very similar, same header, same fact box, telling me different information. I have my general header information, which is I can input my customer information, my contact. I can have various contacts, of course. And this case section is what's you would build this. We would help you design this. But the order type will be typical things like, especially if you're a printer that does both printing, commercial print and wide format. It could be indicate what type of order is it. It could be to define a new order versus a reorder. In Flexo, it could be whether you're doing a, whether it's a roll stock, whether it's a pouch. And then under that, we have the product group. And from there, you can indicate very specific products. So on the commercial side, again, it might be a book, it might be a panel folder, it might be. So these are helping to provide statistical information, but they're also helping to drive in the system some automation, because I can have templates attached to the product groups that will auto-populate, or I can select them on the fly. So rather than build all your quotes from scratch, if you do a plus cover book, well, plus cover books are generally done the same way. You're going to print them either digital or litho, but you're going to basically, make plates. You're going to print it. You're going to fold it, trim it, stitch it, or perfect bind it. So you can have templates relating to those, so that when you click the template, a lot of the estimator's work is done. They're just going to put in the quantity, the number of pages, and the size, and it'll auto-calculate everything else. The other thing it will do is, as we create the first one, it auto-generates an ID. Because it's a database, we have to have, of course, a unique record to indicate that case. Later through the system, as you'll see how it changes as you add a quote stage status, it will define a quote number, and later an order number. What I wanted to show here is we can do alphanumeric, which means we should be able to replicate your existing sequence. If you were to go through with the process and implement PrintVis at the switchover, you could pick up what your last order number was, what your last quote number was, and the system would just carry on with that series. Up here, we have the ability, as we talked about, being able to connect to a SharePoint. So we can click on the folders. It would take us to the folder structure that I've auto assigned to generate from this case, the link to this case number. And it could be on quote letters. It could be on imposition layouts, just a printout PDF of what the file looks like. We also have the ability to link a picture. So you could actually put a picture of what it looks like there. We have our standard fact box, that kind of stuff. The other area that we started to touch on, and this is going to go into a little bit more next, is what is status codes. What is the status code? What's a status flow? And what is responsibilities? So I'm just going to jump into that. There's our little slide, status codes and responsibilities. So status codes is the way that we identify what stage or what phase is the order at from the beginning to the end. But also at the same time, we're using it to leverage to assign who is responsible to take action on that and move it to the next status. So this, of course, like a mini CRM, this is going to help keep things on track within your company. It'll help it so that it can move, hey, it's at a quote, now it needs to go quote send out to the customer. So you're going to see how that kind of interacts within our system. So down here in the tiles, we've noted that this your case is responsible, and take note of the fact that there are 10 presently. So this is a filtered view. If I click on this tile right here, I'm going to come up with a list view of based on which ones I'm responsible for. And you can see in the responsible, I'm responsible for all of them. I'm the coordinator for some, but not for all, but I am responsible to do something for each of these. So this is like my to-do list. I would go in, take action on 217, move it to the next status, it would come off that list. And now I can kind of keep track and things don't fall through the cracks. Somebody's responsible at any given point that they can see, hey, I need to take action on this. So back at the case, what we're looking at is we have a status code. This one's called request, and I'm the person responsible, and there's a deadline date. So the deadline date allows you to set your company's policy. Let's say, for example, estimates when they first come in. The case is the request is generated and it moves to estimating, and the policy is the estimate should be moved to the next status code, which is to send it out to be done within, say, 24 hours the next day. So the deadline would be the next day. These are a list of my actual status codes in this company. So you can see the progression. It starts as a request. After that, it would become a quote, obviously. We would assign that quote number, and then we could send it off, and the sales rep, who's probably now responsible, could mark it as quote sent. So now when you look at that list of that case list, we get to see which stages are each of these jobs at. So it helps everybody keep track of where are the jobs and what phase are they at and who's responsible for them. So back on my case card, I can see we're gonna move this to the next status. And I know what's gonna happen because on my fact box, it's highlighting I'm at request and my next status code is gonna be quote. So to make the change, I go over here to change status. I click on the window or on that button, and it's going to remind me to, allowing for confirmation. Am I sure? Do I want to change it? If I made a mistake, I click no, it would back me out. But in this case, I'm going to say yes. And you can see right away, it has made a change. So let's see what changes it made. Well, the first thing it did is it assigned the quote number for me. The next thing it did was it changed the status code to quote and assigned Sarah, our sales rep, that she is responsible to now take ownership of this and look after it. Okay, so she has a requote, and I'm going to send off the quote letter, and then I'm going to mark this to the next status, which would say, hey, it's quote sent, so we know the customer, the quote is in the hands of the customer, and maybe we want to follow up within the next week. Again, tools to help things keep on track. Now, if we go back to my role center, you can see that 10 is reduced to 9 because I'm no longer responsible for it. And if we switch over to Sarah's role center, hers is now increased and now she's responsible for that. Okay, so that's status codes. We find it, a lot of customers find that quite valuable. So now we're going to take a look at estimating. So in estimating, we've got jobs. We'll define what the job is, called a job line, and what is the job item. Those are like the components. And then the calculation units, that kind of the heart of what this is going on in our system. So here I am back at a case card. And if I look at this down here, we've talked about this uppers area of status codes and all those kind of things, people responsible. But if I look down here, I have job lines. Okay, the job lines are what's defining the job. So here we have a quote. I'll get to the order part in a minute, but here's a quote. And so this particular order, we're looking at 135,000. of a zipper pouch, and this is for frozen berry mix, 600 grams, and it's a 6x9 finished, and it prints 4 colors on the surface. And once it's become an order, it gets assigned the order number, and it gets an order line. And you can see it was a slight, at the time of ordering, they said, well, let's bump it by a little bit more. So we're up to 140,000, but it's the same product. So the job line is defining my job. From here, I'm going to go to the job card. And I'm looking at this area, which is called a job item. So my job items are like the forms. So in this case, I only have one because I only need one component to produce the whole bag. If this was a certain type of bag that needed 2 separate components, they would be 2 different job items. One for the sides, maybe a separate one because it's got a different kind of a base that you need to construct. So the bottom has a different roll being manufactured, which the bagging machine brings together in the end. Or this might actually represent different versions of the same. I could have not only the frozen strawberries, but some frozen blueberries as well. They're the same bag and they're produced the same way. They just happen to be different items with different quantities. So I can set these up as a single order so that they run at the same time. So from the job line, it's indicating things like, and you can see from this component, it's driving that in order to produce a 6x9 it has a lay flat size of 20.5 by 6.5. I'm looking to use it on this PET substrate. So I've picked my substrate here and I've picked my press, the Miraflex, and I'm using a 20-inch sleeve on this to make this work. Okay. So it's actually 20.5. I go to estimating, and this is now presenting me with my list of all my calculation units. Now the calculation unit is what is being calculated for each step of production. So that's like a routing in our manufacturing languages. And included in those calculation units will also be the BOMs, which are my materials that I'm using. So here we have a plate calculation that is looking at the number of plates. So up here is what we're calling the calculation units. And it's identifying the number of plates and a few other things. But watch, if I change to the Miraflex press, then what happens is my details down below change, and this is what we call our calculation details. And for this particular press, we're having this set up. We have an initial webbing setup, which has a quantity of 1 set up. We have a speed that's telling us that we do about 12 per hour. And so this is the amount of time it needs, and it's multiplying it by our hourly rates. So the key here, the top, and the details, which is the breakdown, is at the bottom, tied together. So now I want to drill in and take a look at what are each of these lines actually, how do they function, what are they doing? So I'm looking at a plate, basically a make-ready line. And as we come across, we see that there's a formula code. Now this formula code, which is here number 10, PrintVis comes out of the box with thousands of formulas. Some of them are systems, some of them you can edit. And you also have the ability to create your own. So you can pick and choose, grab data from different fields that are storing data about the job. You can manipulate them mathematically or comparisons, conditional statements to be able to make and affect things like speed tables, scrap tables, or just simply hear the calculation. So in this case, this formula says I have a 4-color job, so I need 4 plates. I mount and set up make ready at 20 plates per hour, so I need 0.2 of an hour. Multiplied by $90 an hour is my cost. Multiply that time by $132 per hour, and that's that $26.40, which is what my sell price will be. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Let's take a look at this run line for calculating my production time. So the system formula 240 is calculating the amount of linear feet that I need to produce these bags. So it is looking at how many across the roll, how many around, and calculating that whole length, full length of run, including scrap, of the PET material that I'm going to need. So from there, it has the 43,411.67 feet. Then it's calculating at a rate of 17,700, roughly 17,700 feet per hour for my average run speed at this level of production. And we use a speed table, which allows us that ability to replicate a slower running in the beginning, a faster running through as the run gets longer, up into a faster running speed as the length increases. And that translates back to a fairly accurate estimate of our average rate of speed for this condition of order. And again, it multiplies it by the numbers. Down here, of course, I also have my material being calculated in pounds, so that's in there as well. Okay. Now the total calculation units, or sorry, these calculation details that are down here, broken down, are being summarized up at the top here. So it's giving me my total time. So if I looked at my press, this 3.4 hours would be all of these hours totaled up. And the dollars of 8,397 are the material and all the labor combined in this calculation. Okay, so let's take a look at purchasing. So now that I've got an order, I need to purchase some materials. So from the order, it is determining what are my materials that are required. Okay. And there's a couple different ways that we can generate a purchase order. One is to go up here and use what's called the material requirements page. So from the material requirement, it gives me a list of all the materials that I need for this job. It's looking inside the case. And from here, I can see that I need this amount of ink. So it's got a quantity and a quantity needed. Now, the difference between these two is as I start to produce, if I run 1,000 sheets, then this would go down. This would stay at required as 8629, but the needed would go down to 7,629. So I can kind of monitor how much has been consumed, how much do I have left to consume. I can create there's a reservation feature within it so that I can take stock and reserve it so that it can't be utilized on other jobs. I can also see what quantities do I have on open purchase orders. So I may already have a purchase order open for this that I could open it up and add to it, or just see when is it due in. Do I need to create another one, whatever I want to decide on. So in this case, my inks are okay, but let's say I need to order some stock because I don't have enough. So I go into what's called the purchase guide. Now, this is the point that splits. The purchase guide is designed to purchase items that are specific to that case. So in some cases, in some situations, this typically, it could be just whatever stock you order because you create a purchase order for each individual one. There's also what's called a requisition worksheet, which allows me to search my orders and my inventory values, where on my item card that you saw earlier, I could define what is my lowest reorder point. When the system sees that you're down to the reorder point, it will add it to the requisition worksheet report and point out to me that, hey, this is running low, I need to place an order. But they also could be orders that are driving that so that I could take, and so for Supreme Silk Cover, I order this all the time. So I'm going to search it and say, I've got 6 different orders that are all using the same size, same stock. I'm just going to group it as one purchase order, but assign each one to its own case. What I'm going to illustrate here is just so that you can see how it generates a purchase order. Let's say I'm just going to order these materials directly to this case. So I click these boxes, telling it that these are the 2 items I want to order. I don't want to order the yellow toner. I click Create Purchase, and it auto-generates a purchase order. So these have the same number, but they're 2 different items. So each item is being identified for the vendor, my prices, and if I want to drill in, I can see this purchase order. So there's, again, my number. There's the order that this belongs to, and the description, the quantities that I'm ordering. I could have rounded up I could have the system tell it to round up, and I could send this off or use the EDI process to get this to my vendor. So let's look at some of the other features now that go through the life of this order. We're going to look at shop floor, scheduling, shipping, and then just round up the session with invoicing. And then we'll have some time for some question and answers. So as you saw before, this is the role center for the shop floor. These tiles represent the jobs that we're doing, and they're presented in the order that scheduling has recommended that we run the job. So if you're used to, creating a production order list that somebody has to print out and hand distribute to production floor, this could be electronically handled. So your scheduling system, when you've assigned the scheduling, is recommending which job comes first on what day. The tile would start as today, what jobs do I have today? And this might be what's presented. But it's not limiting. So if somebody needs to take quick action, which I'm going to illustrate today, let's say today we've been told that we need to push this to the top of the list because customers called in, they need it more urgently. We need to get this printed right away. So I'm going to click on this tile, and what it does is it brings me to the job ticket, the electronic job ticket. And we have these tiles in the center, which are for controlling labor. And you can create whatever tile you want to record what time you want to have identified by the operator. These are later going to be matched together with what you estimated. So you have all those lines that we talked about in estimating make ready that are going to be mapped directly to the time that the operator records for their make ready stage. In this example, I'm just going to go, I've already done my make ready. I've jumped back in and I'm going to do production. So when I click on this tile turns green to tell me that I'm recording production time. Now, while it's recording a bit of time, I'll explain a little bit of what's on the screen. We have the QA checklist. So you could have an audit trail. You could have, and you get to generate this. It could be, for example, has the press operator checked the proofs? And this QA list will ask them to confirm that they've done it. You can actually control it and make it a requirement so they can't actually start production unless they've acknowledged that they've done it. And it records who they were and the date that they actually approved, confirmed that they had done this. I can add comments. So as production is running, they notice that it takes, hey, the time that was estimated was never really realistic. In the future, please add more time. That comment could be added, or they noted something that they want to communicate back to either scheduling or to the CSR. This can be pushed back. Printer, you might use this tile, which is signatures, identifying which signature out of many is being printed. And again, if you don't do that kind of work, any of these tiles can easily be turned off and hidden. So you just hide the ones you don't use. Okay. From here, I can consume materials. So you can actually have the operator consume the material, the number of sheets that they've printed with, and how much they actually produced out of that, which was good copy. Tiles down below. These ones are like downtime. Okay. So this is machine downtime, but I can categorize how it's recorded. Either it's due to an internal error, or a customer error, or a vendor error. The vendor error is convenient. If you have a problem with a blanket or some stock, the operator can click on that, and now that time spent dealing with that issue is pulled out separately from your actual live job run. And it becomes handy because they'll be forced to make a note as to why they're recording it as an error, and then supervisor can follow up and say, yeah, I got to go after the vendor and get that stock replaced and have them cover off my downtime. One of the other comments that I meant to make on the consume materials, I was describing how they could actually record and consume the actual sheets. Some of the items that are handled in a job, the materials can be auto-consumed. Sometimes we hear that inks can be tricky to get operators to record how much ink they actually used. So rather than do nothing, we can have it use the estimated values to deduct your inventory and to charge to the case. So that's an option. Excuse me. Let's now take a look at some scheduling data. This is the scheduling view of a single case. And it looks a little bit similar to the estimating page that you saw. And that's because it's actually pulling the data from the schedule. Or sorry, from the estimate. So you can see it. What I can do here is originally these start and ending times would not be populated. This would be blank. And this would all say unplanned. So I can automate this by telling it what's the requested ship date and what's the earliest we would start this. I can click plan from start date, so I can forward schedule or backward schedule what's the latest I could fit this. When I click this action, what PrintVis will do is it will take a look at every one of these actions, so production stage requirements, look at the time that is planned for, and go into my existing schedule of work and find an area that it could fit it based on not starting the earliest too early or making the job start late. If it finds a spot, it plugs it in and it assigns the date and the time that this should start. The idea here is that you can quickly load things into schedule, and now you can use what's called the production plan window, which allows the scheduler to see all of the machines, all of the work. They can filter by the press, for example, or by any other machine and focus and fine tune the schedule for what they want. So a typical idea that customers use is they might load this at the beginning, but we've got to go through prep time. We've got to go through proofing, which might get delayed. Customer might change their mind. So it's kind of loose in the schedule, but it's off into the distance. What a scheduler is going to be more concerned about is focusing, what am I printing this week? What is approved? What is ready to go to plate? What is ready to go to press? And so they can fine tune, and what they will do is they will lock it in place. And once it's locked and firm planned, then the system won't move it around. With it being variable, what it's helping you to do is it will move any of these around to accommodate other work that's coming into your schedule, provided it doesn't make it start too early or force the job to start late. As soon as it does that, it says, no, I can't do it. And now a scheduler would need, or a supervisor would need to get involved and say, I'm either going to add some overtime to accommodate this requirement, or I'm going to shift some other stuff around with different dates. So while this job has been running, let's highlight something else that's of value, is we have it's showing what work is in progress. So, and people don't have to run around production and say, well, where's my job? Okay. One of the few add-on features, everything is coming with the system that we've been talking about so far. It's not additional. You don't have to buy separate modules, but one of the additions is if you want to do scheduling with a graphic scheduler or Gantt board, that is an additional. And that's an example of this. It's the PrintVis planning board is based on a proven scheduling engine that is used worldwide in Business Central and many other applications, but here it's been designed specifically for PrintVis. So just a couple of highlight shots about this. You can see how all these tiles are jobs. This is just showing in my setup window, I can define a color scheme that I want to define different definitions. If I click on a job, it highlights it. It shows the link just on that job. And also I can call up some details that I want about this. So now I'm going to move forward and we're going to finish up. So we have a few minutes left. Let's fast forward to when the job is done. Now that my job is done, I can do a scenario. We could have somebody review, how did we do? Did we capture everything? Are we missing something? So they can quickly get a summary to see the quote versus the actual order. So remember, I had two quote lines. I had a quote line and an order line. Perhaps we quoted 10,000, but at the time of the order, the customer says, I actually need 11,000. So there would be a slight difference between those two. But the key to this is it's been capturing all your actual production. And you can see, how did we stack up estimated to actual? But now you might find a difference and say, well, where is the difference? One of the areas that you can sort of take note of is you can see This is the breakdown that represented all the transactions that your shop operators have done. What date did they do it? Who did it? What was the quantity they worked with? How much time did they spend? Total hours versus estimated. All of that is in there. Okay. I can also filter through and see what is the material that's been recorded. Perhaps there was more stock used than was estimated, or there was less. So you can drill into these details and make changes here based on, hey, on the hour entries, I had like 36 hours because the operator forgot to clock out. So you can get that adjusted so that it doesn't stand out of line. Also, you can drill in, generate this report out of the box. It's kind of handy. Oh, took my mouse click too many. This gives you a more specific line by line breakdown. So in my pre-press, here's how much was estimated, here's the actual. In my plating, here's how much materials, here's the actual. And again, when it comes to reports, remember that all this is just data in a database. So any custom or specific reports you need, it's just simply a case of us helping you generate what field is storing the data, what do you want to do with it, how do you want to present it, and you can present any way you want. PrintVis works very, very well, again, with Microsoft Power BI, which is a great dashboard for allowing you to have click of a button. It can auto refresh a couple times during the day or overnight. So you can see some overall trends with graphs and other things to see how is my workload looking at all the different kinds of reports that help you make business decisions. So let's take a quick look at shipping, and then we'll go to invoicing. So this is a shipping card. This has two particular shipments. I could actually, if you do distribution, you could import from an Excel. Let's say you got 100 locations that need different quantities and you need to look after that. You can import it from the customer's Excel sheet, and it would auto-populate all the locations so you can track the shipping. Combined shipments works well if you handle a project. PrintVis allows you to link 2 or 3 or 4 different or more different cases as a overall project. Let's say you're going to produce a little booklet with litho, and you're going to produce a little sell sheet digital, and you're going to do a roll-up banner in your wide format. In that case, you could combine all of these, tell shipping that they have to ship all at the same time. Or the shipper could say, hey, these all landed on my dock at the same time. I'm going to group them together and make one shipment to the customer. So it helps to make things more efficient. When it comes to the other thing that we'll touch on is something called shipping integrations. Everybody likes to ask, well, hey, can I integrate my FedEx account or my rate shopping account? Yes, you can. But also what I want to point out is what's nice about Business Central and PrintVis is it comes with, this is called the App Source. Microsoft has a store just like Apple does, like the Apple Store. But specific to Business Central and PrintVis, it comes with hundreds and hundreds of different third-party applications that add extensions, something that might be specific to you. This one in particular is rate shopping. So PrintVis works very well with a few of them out of the box. Easy Post is one. You can integrate with that so that the PrintVis data can publish and go out through Easy Post and Rate Shop and say, hey, this package is best shipped by FedEx or UPS or Purelator, different requirements like that. Okay, so let's wrap up with invoicing. To do invoicing, I'm back at my case. I can click the invoicing guide from here. I could manually fill this out, but that would be tedious. So I'm going to leverage what's called an invoice template. So on the invoice template, I can build as many as I want, and it allows you to define ahead of time how you want to invoice that particular product, or it could be driven by a customer that says, if you're going to do business with me, all my invoices must look like this, that must contain this data. So you can preset that and have it auto-populated, or you can tell it to be selected by somebody generating the invoice. So in this case, I'm going to pick the invoice job. When I click this and build, it's going to go into the case, pull in all the data. And so it's telling me, hey, there's my order number. Here's the name reference of the job. Here's a description. It was 5,024 page 8.5, 11. It can paint the colors. But here it's doing the charge. It's picking the GL account because although I haven't touched on it, PrintVis And Business Central comes with a very complete accounting package. You do not need another accounting package to connect to. It could if you needed to, but we sort of say, hey, why go that extra step? Just leverage this one. It's very good and can handle pretty much anything you need for the accounting side. But you can see here where it's going to address my ledgers, my sub-ledger entries. All of that stuff works as seamlessly as one system. And that's all I had to show today.
Thank you so much, Mark. I hope everybody has a great day, and we hope to see you again in one of our upcoming webinars.